And she cried even more. And the Prophet ﷺ then told everybody, yeah, rest. We'll go later. And she cried even more because all that was done just because of her. But if you look at the... Anyway, next question.
Just continue.
Yes.
To be continued.
All right. Good. Can the Prophet maintain fairness between his wives? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that he did his best. And we see that in the hadith. But at the same time, did he have any inclination to more towards one wife than the other? Yes, you could see he was more interested in some of the wives. They were more interested in da'wah, they were more interested in being with him, some due to age. And so, yes, he would treat them fairly. He would provide, he would spend equal time with his wives. And in doing the best you can to treat people fairly, that is the equality. Can you choose new best friends anytime you want? Can you? No. Like if somebody is my best friend, you don't tell me, all right, here's a new friend, I want you to make this one your best friend. It doesn't work that way. You know, it builds gradually, or it doesn't build at all. And the kind of relationship that therefore develops within interpersonal relations is one where how much love you have for this wife compared to the other, or children. You know, sometimes, yes, you love your children equally, particularly as they're very small. As they grow up, you may find you tilt a little more to one than the other. But that's not your doing, that's not your choice. And you should always try to hide that as much as possible, never make one feel neglected, and be as equal as humanly possible. The part that is humanly not possible, you pray Allah to forgive you there. And that's where the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah, I have done my best to be equal to them, and in what I have no control over, you know best, and he prayed for Allah's forgiveness. Thank you. No, you're right.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you.
You're right. Why is polygamy allowed in Islam?
Can we involve the so that will be more active?
Why is polygamy allowed in Islam?
Solve problem.
Solve problem. From the points we made, I know Lim wouldn't like this, but please, if there's any point you want to add, please. Yeah. I know we got some suggestions from what's going on in China and all that, but Zainab, you already know, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Why polygamy allowed in Islam? Did we touch this?
I think two particular points, most importantly in polygamy.
Good.
You must understand that polygamy is a norm from since very beginning until today, inshallah, until the day of judgment. And most people, they practice polygamy. Polygamy means not necessarily you must marry. Meaning a man have many sexual partners. This is polygamy. So Islam, you know, put a limit as well as condition, so that they do not, say that the man tidak menindas, tidak oppress the women. So you marry them and you take care of them. This is one of the best ways to actually take so protect the women.
So I think that summarizes a lot. Number one, it's a practice that has been going on. It's not new. It's not introduced by Islam. But what Islam did was to regulate it. Yeah. And put rules and conditions to minimize whatever abuses that would happen. So it's not about this was introduced by, no, it's already going on, and Sharia is just regulating something that people are already doing. And as you, I think we touched on some of this, mistresses, whatever.
Survey.
Yeah, and you know, somebody agrees to marry a wife, or you know, they both agree to marry each other. Madam agrees to Mr. And why, or another lady is to come into the relationship. Okay? Is wife number 2 being forced?
No.
Is she being forced?
No.
She chose to join the relationship. Okay? Question is, wife number 3, was she forced?
No.
Number 4?
No.
Question is, why would some women agree to be a number 2 or a number 3 or a number 4? Why not, no, I want monogamy. I'll wait till I see my one man. Why agree? Can the man do polygamy without the cooperation of the woman? No. So before it became the husband with 2 wives, before it became the husband with 2 wives, this wife had to agree. This was number 1. This is wife number 2. She had to want it. Okay? If she said no, monogamy would have been maintained. So you needed this one to also want polygamy, this one to agree to also want polygamy, before you could have a polygamous relationship. Now the question I'd like to ask, brothers and sisters, I mean, within this society, what type of situation is it that would make a woman, not a man, that would make a woman agree to be wife number 2? And for the older ones among us, what is it that would make you agree for your daughter or your sister to be a number 2?
For the sake of religion, for the sake of Islam, for the sake of the future of Islam.
So in your situation, it would be to save Islam in one way? Okay. Any others? Or are we all never, never?
It's the best option. It's the best option to solve the problem of the social matters in nowadays.
So there are social problems, like what?
Is a woman more than man?
Sorry?
Is woman more than man? What's the option that we have?
Okay, so in some societies you have more women than men.
What about
In China?
What about in China and India?
Exactly.
Men more than women.
Exactly. So, one, you would say, we're not talking about China's problem. Yeah, we'll find how to solve that problem. Probably if the abortion thing was...
So,
I think there are many reasons that I mean, if for me, my sisters and so on, usually they will end up with polygamy because sometimes number 1 is I think usually the age catching up. I mean they're
Getting older.
Maghrib or something Isha. Second is sometimes the husband pass away or the man divorce her. But if the religion do not allow polygamy, then she will have to be single forever. Not single. It's difficult for her to find a single man. And also, some people they want to. Some women they cannot have children, so the man want to have another one. Yeah. There are many other reasons.
yeah. So to exclude that, actually to solve the social problem, actually only the 2 countries, India and China, is men more than men more than women. So for the rest of the country, normally woman is more than men. For like it's American 37 million, England 4 million, German 8 million. Women more than men. So the option is the best option. I can give 4 options that women can choose to get married. First, the option she can choose that to become anak dara sampai to the end
to stay celibate.
Second is to become a public properties. Third is to become the lesbian, and fourth to become second, third, and one that confident that is protected by the law. And my students say, "Oh, I choose the 5th question. I kill myself." So I got option.
When we talk about polygamy, men talk
Can we listen to ladies?
I want to listen to the men. I don't want to listen to the men.
I think the point Brother Ghani is making, sisters, not pointing at you, but for sisters you know, who have either agreed to be a second wife, or your daughters, or your sisters, what type of situation would come up for which if they said, I want to go and I want to be a second wife, you would say,
Okay.
okay. I mean, thank God I'm not in your situation, but if I was in your situation, I think, yeah, I would. Is what the guy said representative?
Acceptable?
Okay, good. Next topic, please.
Yeah. So, yes, polygamy is supposed to solve a problem. But in Maqasid, you see, sometimes from the usul side, you look at the Quran and you say polygamy is allowed. But as Lim said, there are certain conditions around it. And these conditions, quite a number of them, but the most important is justice. Which is so important that the Prophet ﷺ says, a man who is not fair to his wives will wake up on the day of judgment with half of his body falling off, or just hanging, paralyzed. What is the... So some people try to use the fact that because polygamy is permissible, it automatically means it is encouraged. Polygamy is mubah, permissible. Some circumstances may encourage it, some circumstances may discourage it, or even prohibit it. And it's important for people to really ask themselves whether polygamy is just pursuing lust, just because you can afford it, or whether it is for the reason the Prophet ﷺ said you should get married. But the Prophet ﷺ said a person is married for 4 reasons. Some people are married because of their faith. Others, in other words, their character, the quality of these people. Some it's for their lineage, the background, the family, the connections, etc. Some it's for their wealth. Because if you get married into this family, it's a wealthy family. Some, it's for their beauty. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Zatu bid-din, pick religiosity. That should be your criteria. It's not saying the others aren't important, but what did the Prophet recommend? Pick religiosity. And so when you go to marry your number 2, is that your criteria? Before you start saying, oh, it's sunnah, yeah, you don't just use something that is permissible just to satisfy your lust and still want to rationalize it as if this is something encouraged by Islam, sanctioned, Islam has no problem with it. If you want to keep to the sunnah, you keep to the sunnah the whole way through, not where it is convenient for you. The second point, marriage has its maqasid. It has its objectives. Some are pure biological, having children, emotional, sexual relations, and all that. But one of the things the Sharia is consistent about, you see it on issues to do with divorce, etc., is Islam wants a happy, stable family. We touched on the importance of the environment in which children are growing. Yeah. It's not an abusive relationship. Allah describes describes marriage and the relationship between husband and wife, that they are like garments of each other. It describes it as being with muwadda wa rahma and sakina, you know, with love, with mercy, with tranquility. This is the ideal family. If you know you have that, and marriage number 2 is going to break that, be very careful about trying to justify the means when you know you're not getting the objective for which Islam is permitting marriage. And so you hear somebody saying, Assalamu alaikum, is it allowed for me to go and get a secret marriage done? You know, like I don't have to ask wife number 1. Do you want peace in your family? But wife number 1 may say no. Okay, so is your relationship going to be better if you bring this? I mean, you know wife number 1 better. It's not about prescription to go ahead or not to go ahead. It's not what I'm saying. But factors to consider before you go ahead. Fakhruddin Ar-Razi once said, if you just want to marry and you think marriage is sunnah and therefore you will get reward from it, he says you will get reward easier without the fitna by going and doing extra nafilah. If it's just, you just want reward, yeah, go and do nafilah, because nafilah is never described as a fitna. Whereas Allah describes azwajukum wa awladukum wa amwalukum fitna. Okay, why? There's a responsibility that comes with it. So it's not I'm marrying just for the sake of getting reward. No, there are responsibilities that go that you need to be ready for. These responsibilities were so serious that you find some scholars, like Imam al-Nawawi, like Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, etc., because of the lifestyle they lived, they didn't get married. Because marriage is sunnah, it's not compulsory. But once you are married, fulfilling the rights of a wife, that is sunnah. That's fard ayn. It's a responsibility on you. Having children is not compulsory. But once you have children, the rights of the children are wajib. You know, they're fard on you. You must take care of them. And so if you know that because of your lifestyle, your children will be unfairly treated, or your wife or your wives will be unfairly treated by you, then better not get yourself into that situation. When Abu Huraira's wife died, somebody said, why don't you get married again? He said, no. Why? He said, looking at the kind of work I'm doing now, I would not have the time to be fair to my wife. One wife. Yeah. Let alone more. So the key thing is the question of justice to wife, to children. You look at your lifestyle and you look at whether you can stand before Allah with your choice. But don't be judgmental on people. You know, when somebody or this girl or this family decides they're going with polygamy, or they're going to have 20 children, or they're going to have whatever, so long as, yes, you do your dhikr for yourself and others, but don't get judgmental. You know, in other words, don't start judging people's family, or this woman, or he's being inconsiderate or whatever, because you hear a lot of that. You know, if somebody comes, this guy is very inconsiderate to wife number 1, he's marrying wife number 2. You don't know what really is the quality of the relationship. Yeah. So you leave the person between them and Allah. May Allah forgive them for their mistakes. May Allah make them a happier couple. Can a believing man, believing in Allah and the Prophet, marry a believing woman who only believes in Allah but not in the Prophet?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes.
She believes in La ilaha illallah but not Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Yes.
Depends on the situation. If she only know about Allah, don't yet know about Prophet, then it's the situation. I mean, unless if she know the Prophet and she does not accept it.
She knows, but not accept.
Is this woman supposed to be a Muslim?
No.
Okay. Because if you have a Christian woman, you're allowed to marry her. She doesn't believe in the Prophet. She believes in God. She believes in her own prophets and all that. You know, but she doesn't accept Muhammad as a prophet. No problem. She's still Ahl al-Kitab. And marriage is permissible. That's how I thought I understood because I can't imagine somebody is a Muslim and doesn't believe that the Prophet, then it means you don't accept the Quran. You know. Are we okay with that one?
Yes.
This is a good question. A woman's husband is sick and paralyzed. Okay. Her husband is sick and paralyzed. The woman loves her husband, but she has her own needs. She wants a husband, she wants children, she wants somebody she can go swimming with. Why can't she marry another man and still keep the sick husband? What do you say?
Yesterday you said about khulu.
Sorry?
Yesterday you said about khulu.
Yeah.
Can I have both?
Okay. So what you're saying is she can divorce the husband, but the poor guy is sick, you know, like he doesn't want to divorce her. She doesn't want to divorce him. She loves him. He's just, you know, he can't just do all the things she would like to do.
You come back to husband. What happens if the sick man will be alright?
Okay. So we've got a perspective that's interesting. So the guy is sick, and she goes and marries another guy, and then this guy gets better. Okay. Now what?
World War II.
There are certain things in Sharia. You know, yesterday when we were talking about polyandry. Okay, this marriage to more than one man, and how in the name of fairness, you can say, well, to be fair, if he can have 2 or 3 wives, then it should be fair for her to have 2 or 3 husbands. Okay? Now that kind of logic sounds fine until you take it to then what? Then what? Then what? And this is what is sometimes useful for this type of question. No. There are many reasons why you would say, oh, she should take care of him. You know, he helped her in this way, etc. Okay, but the moment you're going to get married, you're going to have sexual relations, you're going to start having children, etc., then you would have to divorce this person and marry somebody else. Does it mean you can't take care of this person anymore?
You can.
Yes. So the question is, what methods that don't interfere with the new marriage, okay, that don't interfere with the new marriage, can she do? Maybe the husband is paralyzed. He's the only one in his family. He's got nobody else to help. Okay? What can she do to make sure he's still taken care of? Okay? Because since he's no more working, no more whatever, she may decide, look, we can afford to arrange somebody who will come and see him, somebody who will clean him, somebody who will do this, etc. She can be involved in trying to help, but not at the expense of her legitimate relationship, new husband. So if it's the kind of thing, she says her new husband, listen, would you allow me to sponsor this, to do that, etc. No problem, fine. Okay. But the moment she's married, she can't be with him alone in an intimate sense, because he is now non-mahram, exactly. So it's really up to her to choose her priorities. Now you say, but that's not fair. The question is, all right, if you leave it, then what happens? And how paralyzed does a man have to be before she can get a second husband? What type of illness? How reversible or non-reversible should this illness be? And you start getting into a very gray area where you open the doors to a number of problems. In Western culture, there is a simple general rule that people have, which is, if two adults, any two adults, if two adults want to do something, so long as they are not harming anybody else, and they are adults, leave them alone. Is it understood? Yeah.
Even they are not married.
Sorry?
Two adults. Even if they are not married.
Yeah. So long as they are adults, that is why adultery is not considered in the West a legal issue. You want to carry on with your adultery? No problem. You want a divorce? No problem. You want a divorce? We'll divorce you. Why you have your, that's not their problem. One big problem is, the moment you say, yeah, that logic sounds reasonable. Okay? But where does it lead to? And that is the main argument brought by homosexuals. You know, adult, consenting, we're not harming anybody, it's just between the two of us. And you say, yes, you're not harming, very disgusting thing you're doing, but okay, it's just the two of you. And then the society says, okay, no problem. Okay. So this logic is now given a stamp of approval. This logic is an argument you can now use. It becomes like a new usul in thinking. When then a new case comes up, what is this issue? Well, it's this brother who is sleeping with his sister, but they are both adults and they both consent. So what do we do about this kind of case? Well, they're adults, they consent, none of your business. Okay. And the next stage is the same logic,
Father and daughter.
father and daughter. What's interesting is, they don't use that logic to permit polygamy. Is it understood? Yeah. Because the same logic that you use to allow homosexuality in your society, but then if, like in the Mormons case and some of these cases in the States, etc., if that's the logic you will use, then you allow to use it for the two women who agree to marry one man. But you say no. And one of the concerns is, where does that logic stop being used? Yeah. Is it okay for us to have people sleeping with each other, whether they are brothers, sisters, mothers, with anybody? And you say no. You know? Oh yes, she's married to this guy, but she also sleeps with the other person. And you say, no, that's not proper. Then stop bringing this logic to open the door to other things in the name of to be fair. Yeah. The result is worse than the immediate thing. And so the danger is, while it sounds fair that she gets a second husband, the result is worse. In other words, instead of opening a door that creates more problems and you can't shut it anymore, better shut it on something small than opening it and you have something you can't handle. Is dating and coupling between unmarried men and women haram in Islam? Explain how to explain this to a non-Muslim. Is dating allowed in Islam?
Yes. Yes.
That's good.
What do you think?
Is it mu'amala or ibadah? This is a fiqh question, right?
Ibadah.
Yes. Is ibadah? Dating ibadah. All right. So yes, it's under mu'amalat, and the rule is what?
Yes, I know.
Everything halal except what is haram. So between unmarried couples, everything is halal except what is haram. Okay? The question is, what is haram? Can they sleep together?
لا تقربوا الزنا.
Don't go near zina. So anything that will take them near zina is prohibited. Okay? And among what type of things specifically? They should not this, they should not that, they should not that. No seclusion. They shouldn't be in a room or a place away from the public eye, just the two of them. Okay? There should be a chaperone, either another mahram there, or it should be public enough where other people can see. Because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a lady who wanted to speak privately to the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, pick any of the streets of Medina and we will speak in public there. Okay? So it was by the roadside, everybody is passing by. They had their private conversation because she didn't want the other Sahaba or others to hear what she was saying. So it was private, but it wasn't in privacy. Okay, so nobody knew what they talked about. We don't know what they talked about. The Hadith people didn't know. So yes, you can be private. You can speak in private, but not in privacy, not away from the public eye. No physical contact. Okay? No holding hands. No, nothing that leads towards zina. Modesty in your dressing, modesty in your behavior. Yeah, you lower your gaze, you guard your modesty. The purity of your intention. Okay, you're not going into this relationship to exploit the other person. It's not, no. It's with the intention of knowing the other person better for the purpose of your job, for the purpose of better planning for business, for the purpose of getting married. There are many reasons why men will interact with women. Yeah. In healthcare, in business, in all sorts of areas. So the key thing is to do it in an environment where nothing haram is going on. So modesty in your dress, modesty in your behavior, purity of your intention, the legitimacy of the purpose, no physical contact, no privacy. 6 main points to male and female interaction. Yeah. Otherwise, marriage is sunnah. You are expected to know the other person. And the Prophet encouraged one of the Sahaba, go and see the person you are thinking of getting married to. How do you explain that to non-Muslims? Sometimes you just give a very simple statistic. Now, more and more, dating, courtship, which includes sexual relations, is on the rise. There's a book, Super Freakonomics, had a very interesting and disturbing chapter. It was discussing that in the West and globally generally, prostitution is getting cheaper. Is that a good sign or a bad sign? Bad sign. You know why it's getting cheaper? There's so much of it. It's available for free. As sexual relations are getting more loose, we notice at the same time marriages are breaking more. And if you ask the experts who study that area, I'm not talking of the pastors and the priests and the malam, no, the people who actually study this issue of social problems, because they are the ones handling divorce cases, they are the ones handling abuse, etc. The most abusive marriages, the marriages with the highest divorce rates, are those where sexual relations were taking place before marriage. How do you explain that is another topic. Lim will inshallah make that book available. Yeah, no, it's been written already, so it's just how it gets to. But yeah, you can read more on all this issue of premarital.
One more question before we go for break.
Yeah.
One more question.
If one can surrender himself to Allah, why can't he surrender polygamy?
I thought it should be, I don't know who is the originator. I thought it should be, if one can surrender herself to Allah, why can't her surrender polygamy? But if the originator mentioned it, then we discuss.
Men always surrender to polygamy, I guess.
Yeah.
10%.
Whether practically or
Not himself.
Oh yeah, all of the men are different.
Brother Lim can answer this question.
Okay, so we leave that one. Why must Muslim women pray behind men? Is there dalil for this? What is the dalil? Is it ibadah or mu'amalat? Ibadat. How were prayers done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ?
children.
In the normal design of mosques, the imam followed by men, then children, and then women. Why would children pray in front of women? Why not put the children behind the women?
The children, male or female?
Yeah, children. Those who haven't, yeah, the playing group, but yeah. They'll behave themselves. Good.
Mother can observe.
Mother can observe. How would you feel as a mother if your child was praying, your child was playing behind you, and you were praying? Then you concentrate. No, a child falls. You just hear doom, head has hit something. You know, all mothers turn. So it's for the convenience of the prayer that the children are in front. It's for the convenience of the prayer that the men are in front of the women.
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes it something.
Not for yourself. So, because in many situations, women would not feel comfortable doing ruku or sujood in front of men. Okay? Men would not feel comfortable, I guess some would. Men would not feel comfortable doing ruku or praying when women are in front of them. You know, it's just a kind of distraction that you don't need it if it's prayer that brought you to the mosque.
I don't think so. It's not comfortable. I mean, it should be okay. The only thing is they cannot concentrate. Comfortable is fine, okay. Concentrate.
And so one should not forget about the maqasid of the mosque. What's the objective of coming to the mosque for prayer? Okay? You don't want to undermine that objective by the kind of arrangements you have. In places where the arrangement, like in Makkah, when it comes for prayer, where do the women stay?
Side by side.
Behind?
Side by side.
Beside. Yeah. They stay beside the men. Okay? There's a gap between them, but the women are having their prayers, the men are having their own. So if this is the Kaaba, if this is the Kaaba here, and these are the rows of various people, these are the rows of the women. And there's space there, there's passage. Sometimes there is even like a metal barrier. But in some places, no, they don't. You know where you have the Maqam Ibrahim? After you do your tawaf, you go and do 2 nafilas. Yeah, anybody goes and does 2 nafilas there. A woman is praying here, a woman is praying there. Good. Outside, if you are coming late for prayer, you just put your thing and you pray. Okay? And that is why some did not look at it as if it was a big deal. Why? Because if you came in time for prayer, you would go to a place where, even when men were going to pray with, women were in front of men, the men were usually a good distance, and the police there or whatever would try to, you know, give some level of privacy. But the moment you are trying to manage a crowd of over 1 million people, it's not a small job. Okay? And that's why scholars did not like taking the example of what goes on Umrah as being something that, okay, that means it's all okay everywhere else, because you could see the kind of crowd and you can understand. When it's time for prayer and you don't say you don't pray. You know? So you just get your place and pray and you focus on what brought you. Some mosques, the men pray upstairs and the women are downstairs. And if you say who's in front, they're actually above each other. But the objective of concentration in the prayer has been achieved. The objective has been achieved. In some mosques, it is like this, you know, that side is for the women, instead of upstairs. Sometimes it's the other way around. Women are upstairs, men are downstairs. But following the sunnah where they prayed in one hall, one mosque, the men were in front and the women were behind. The kind of reasons why the Prophet would allow, and in some cases encourage Sahaba to come to the mosques for their prayers were many, since that's where a lot of hadith were presented. A lot of da'wah was done in the mosque. There was a time when, and I'm raising this because today there's a general tendency to pick a hadith where the Prophet said it's better for a woman to pray in her house or pray in the corner of the house, etc., and to use that to discourage women. And some actually go as far as forbidding women from going to the mosque when the Prophet explicitly said, do not prohibit the female servants of Allah from going to the mosques for their prayers. Abdullah bin Umar, one of the Sahabi, his son said to the father, I don't feel comfortable my wife's going to the mosque. You know, I don't feel comfortable with it. So he said he wasn't going to allow his wives to go to the mosque. And Abdullah bin Umar said to the son, I said the Prophet said, do not forbid them from going to the mosque for their prayers. The son insisted. The father repeated, I said the Prophet said, you know, like, I said the Prophet said. And the son still insisted. And the narrator of the hadith said right until his death, he stopped talking with his son. Yeah. That was how serious the Sahaba took this type of topic. And on one occasion when they were praying, there was a period of serious poverty in Medina. And some of the women came to complain to the Prophet ﷺ that some of the men, their clothing does not cover their aura. And when they do ruku, they see things they should not see. And it's a distraction. And the Prophet ﷺ said to them, I'm sure if that happened today, we would just say, talk. Society has changed. Women stop coming to the mosque. The Prophet ﷺ said to the women, all right, next time I say Allahu Akbar and I go into ruku, when I say Allahu Akbar and the men have to go into ruku, you go into ruku before them. And you wait until they've risen or risen from ruku, then you rise from ruku. And when it's Allahu Akbar to go into sujood before them. And wait until they rise from sujood, and then you rise from sujood. Okay. So it's to look for simple ways or mechanisms of handling that. Which answers the issue of this issue of barrier that we'll come to later, which was not. Oh, Dalil is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ where he said the first row are for the men. Sorry, the best rows for the men are the first rows. The best rows for the women are the last rows. Yeah, and we look at how it was done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It was men, children, and women. Sorry, okay, so we have something.
Thank you. Yes, we have to take a short break.
His brother only want to explain Alal Kita, or you want to say tomorrow? Or you
No, it's on the topics.
After this. It's
all right, okay.
So take a short break.
Just before that was position of women in prayer. But the question was asked that some non-Muslims feel that women are not being treated fairly compared to men, because men are told they should go for Jummah prayers and women are told it's optional. Okay? If Islam was to be fair, it would give both of them, it would tell both of them, you should all go for Jummah prayers. How would you respond to that?
The reason why women doesn't, it's not compulsory to go for Friday prayer. Because women have other responsibility, children, cooking, some other responsibility. So if the women also go to take care of the child.
Is the point understood? Yeah. Going to the mosque for a woman who is expecting for a woman who has children, for a woman who may be cooking, particularly if that's a cultural role that women in that society played. Of course, in some modern societies, you just microwave everything and it's done. Or you've got somebody who does the cooking, etc. So really it's more ruksa, they call it in fiqh. It's like leniency. It's just like saying when you are in your periods, you don't have to pray and you don't have to fast. Fine, you're not being treated equally, but is that really where you want to be equal? You know, or do you actually consider that as this is part of rahmah? You know, this is Allah making life easier for me. The ayah, Allahu yuridu lakumul yusra. Allah wants ease for you. He doesn't want difficulty. So it gives women the choice. If they want to go, and many women at the time of the Prophet went to the mosque. Yeah, many women went to the mosque. Wives of the Prophet went to the mosque. Yeah, this was a daily occurrence. They went for subuh prayers, they went for isha prayers, so you can have a hadith where some men were feeling it's not proper to allow women who want to go for subuh prayers, you know, they want to go for the night prayers, to go, but the Prophet actually said specifically in a hadith, do not prohibit women for going to the morning prayers. You know, the other one, do not prohibit women for going for the night prayers. So whether night, whether day, whatever, you have very clear hadith saying do not prohibit them. Are we okay with that? Why do some Muslim women wear headscarf and some do not? Why do some wear headscarves and some do not? Any suggestions? Sorry?
Different of faith level.
Okay. One may be a faith level. Any other thing?
Ignorant.
One may be a knowledge issue. Ignorance.
Society.
Very good. Societal pressure.
What about husbands not permitting?
Sometimes there's an obstacle. The parents or the husbands, yeah, somebody, in other words, the society. Let's start with the family. The family may not be approving. The society may make it very difficult. Now, usually you would say, well, if the society makes it difficult, if her iman is strong enough, she'll be able to wear it. Unfortunately, it's not always so. You may find somebody strong in doing one thing, weak in doing something else. You know, it's just like in dhikr. Some people are very good at fasting every Monday, Thursday, but they can't do any tahajjud. Some are good with tahajjud, but they're not into reading Quran. Some are good with this, but not good with that. Some, the hijab is a big problem, but sadaqah, da'wah, helping, no problem. You know, people have all different challenges. One sister grew up with it. You know, she grew up wearing hijab. Another, she knew nothing about hijab till she got into university, and it was a bit funny, very difficult to make that adjustment. And so, it's not advisable to be too judgmental regarding people.
In Turkey, they don't allow women.
Fine, that's a societal issue where Turkey would not allow them in some of the educational institutions. In public, you can wear it. So yes, you got that. The point I also want to stress is, if a particular sister is finding it difficult to wear hijab, don't over push. Okay? Don't over push. Let her continue to grow in something that is easy for her. This will come later. I remember my mother saying, she was a convert to Islam long before she married my dad. But she wasn't wearing hijab. This was in the 60s. She got married, but my dad never said anything to her about hijab. She was very active in the Muslim community.
When you say hijab,
No, I'm not meaning it. No, hijab, covering the hair.
Oh.
I mean, when I see some of the pictures, she's in a, short sleeve, whatever, and it's below the knee, but it wasn't full length. From a more Western type of culture, you'll say, okay, that's modest enough. But still, it hadn't reached the Islamic standard of prescribed dress. And he never spoke about it until when they went for Hajj together. And she said, I am not going back to what I used to wear. So Hajj was her own turning point. For other people, they've got their own turning points. But remember, because people find certain things more easy or more difficult, Allah does not place a responsibility on a person greater than what they can handle. Allah considers them responsible for what they can handle and they refuse to handle. And if you are not a girl and you are not as conscious as other people, and Allah has made you have the power to withstand pressure because of the context in which you grew up, don't think everybody is like that. Just as because you can stand up and speak in public and correct people, etc., some people, the moment you bring them, they're shaking. Like to you, what are you shaking about? You've been speaking since God knows well. People like me, you can't even shut me up. Yeah, but some people it's very difficult. So you need to be very careful about how much you push people. Help them know, but once they've known, back off. Back off. Don't make a big deal about it when there are other things to learn. Yeah, so the key thing, don't be too and don't make it a condition for association. As we said, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the men weren't covering their aura, but it wasn't something where the Prophet would make a big deal. No, aura is not covered, get out of the mosque. No, but the same thing with women. Aura is not covered, what? Get out of the mosque. Allah asks a rhetorical question. Who is worse than the person who bars people from the houses, in other words, the masajid, the mosques, where Allah's name is praised? And Allah mentions church, mosques, churches, and synagogues. You don't stop people from going to this place. And if a sister is in hijab, then fine, she wants to go. If she's not wearing hijab, probably she needs the mosque even more than the one who has hijab. So be very careful about making dressing a big deal. It's not another pillar of Islam. Not wearing hijab is not among the kaba'ir. It's not among like the major sins. It's not like zina or something like that. And remember, yes, people make different mistakes, but not wearing a full hijab or dealing in riba, which is worse? Riba. I mean, riba, the Prophet ﷺ said, if there were like 100 offenses, different types of how bad riba is, the least bad of riba is like somebody sleeping with his mother in the haram. Like, how bad can you get? And yet, you have a sister who, she's not dealing with that. You got brothers dealing in riba and enjoying riba, and that's not a problem. And the one who's not wearing hijab properly is your big concern and you want to fight over it. We need to prioritize our battles and our methods and be more sensitive to these people.
Brother,
yes.
So how do you balance this one between mara minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi and with the ud'u ila sabila rabbika? So how do you balance it?
Just for those who don't understand what the brother said, everybody understood, right?
No, we don't.
The hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever sees something wrong, correct it with your hand. If you can't with your tongue, and then change it with your heart. So there's an instruction there to correct things. Okay? How do you balance that? That when you see something wrong, you should do something about it. How do you balance that with another instruction, call people to the way of Allah with wisdom and beautiful preaching? Is there a contradiction between the two?
Yes.
Is it either this or that? Or this is an instruction on what should be done. This is an instruction on methodology. Yeah. Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu. But with hikmah yughayyirhu. Why? Because the objective is taghyir. You want the change. You see something wrong, change it with your hands, or with the authority in you, or with your tongue, communicate it, or with your heart, the desire, the optimism, or some would say through dua. So, but remember, it says, that's what is required. That at the end of the day, wrong is changed to right. That's the objective. It's not just you hit your head on the wall and nothing changes. No. So you have to remember what's the objective. And the question is, what is the most effective method of changing things? Let's give the example of what the Prophet did when he saw a Sahaba stealing. Battle of Tabuk, it's over. Normally what happens at the end of these battles, you know, because there's no fridges and no biscuit snacks and these fast foods, etc. in those days, when you are going to come from a place like Mecca to Medina to fight, how many kilometers are you looking at? Mecca to Medina?
400.
About 400, 450. So imagine the distance of 400 kilometers. How many days will it take you? On foot. Yes. It's weeks. Okay? So you don't go there with just a sandwich. Okay? You carry your sheep along. Carry your camels. And every day, all right, I will slaughter my own and we all eat. And tomorrow you slaughter your own and we all eat. Enough to go. Also enough to sell on the way, to buy more wheat or to buy. You're not going to carry all the food for going and coming back. You will buy on the way, etc. So people went with a lot of wealth. But they also went with people who are going to do the cooking for them. You know, you don't want to go in battle and you come back. So they went with their servants, they went with the women, they went with whoever was going to be useful. So at the end of the battle, there was a lot of wealth to share. And that was what was divided to pay the soldiers who were involved in the fighting and to also take care of the widows or those from the fallen soldiers, the families of the dead. At the end of this battle, everything is supposed to be brought together and the Prophet is to divide. This guy saw a skin of fat, animal fat. It was in a container. And he picked it up and nobody seeing he was hiding it. So as he looked, he saw the Prophet looking at him. And the Prophet smiled and just went away. That was it. The guy narrated the thing himself. You know. That's how the Prophet, when he saw something wrong, that's how he corrected it. It's effective. You don't need to shout about it. You don't need to say anything. I'm sure if the Prophet could have corrected everything with just a smile, he'd do it. Okay? Reality, maybe smile doesn't work everywhere. So, it's not a contradiction for yughayyirhu bi yadihi, but the issue is taghyir you want. You know? And sometimes, yes, you could speak to somebody, but you know, I'll speak to somebody else who will speak to him. Yeah. You know, I want to advise this person. If I talk, I may be misinterpreted, I may be misunderstood. You don't say, but Allah says I should. No, you want the thing to change. What's the most effective method? Okay? What's the best hikmah in this situation? Is to talk to his friend to find a way to advise him on the way he's handling his child or the way he's whatever.
One of the best way, if you want the women to wear headscarf, is you don't have to also ask her to do, buy her a present.
Buy her a present.
Understood lah.
The something that is very useful. You know killer whales?
Killer whale.
It's like dolphins.
Yeah.
Okra.
Yeah, orcas. Very good. How they train them to jump? You know how they train them?
Right.
You know they get them from the wild, right? Yeah.
Is the food?
They're dangerous. How do you use food?
Right.
You just go up there and hold it and it'll jump. It'll probably think you're the food. But yeah, food is important. Yeah, they use food. How?
The trainer jump with the wind.
Just inside the mouth, you mean?
Sheikh Kamal. What they do is they put this whale inside the big aquarium, this big swimming pool type of thing. And it's swimming around, and they get a thick rope, and they put that rope underwater, and they're watching underwater. When it swims over the rope, they throw the food. When it swims under the rope, they don't do anything. Next time it swims over, food. Under, nothing. Over, food. Until he starts doing his 1 + 1. And he starts swimming over, and his food. And he's over, and he's always swimming over, and he's getting food. Then they raise the rope a little bit, still underwater. And he goes over, food. Under, nothing. Over, food. Raise it a bit. Under, nothing. Over, food. Over. And they bring it to the surface of the water, still on the surface of the water, but this is his first jump. Jumps over, food. Goes under, nothing. And they start to lift it above 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. If you try to punish a killer whale, how many of you have seen Freeing Willy? Yeah, you will pay. Yeah, it's a very dangerous big animal. If you always give it food, then when it's full, it will not jump. Okay? So they have to reward it through different ways. Sometimes you give it food. Sometimes they just get that big brush and give it a rub on the back, and it likes that kind of massage. Different ways of rewarding. Because also you don't want it to always be hungry, because it may start thinking about you. But the way to get a wild killer whale to start jumping 4 meters in the air is through identifying the good that it does and rewarding the good and being quiet about the wrong that it does. Okay? When somebody wears a bit of a hijab, that looks nice. That's all. The hijab reduced, no comment. Whether it's your daughter, whether it's your sister, you look at what's the appropriate way. But it applies also to dawah volunteers. You know, people who you can't punish them because they didn't do something, but positive reinforcement, as Allah says, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful, I will give you more. You know, and volunteers are very much like that, but children are very much like that too. So when people try to do some little good, encourage them, praise them, they themselves will do it again. You know, because people like to be appreciated. So in some societies, the point that you brought on societies, sorry, Lily, on societies, in some societies, women feel very threatened. It's just like going out at night in the streets. Does everybody feel the same level of risk?
No.
No. Some people can go out any time of the night.
Right.
Others, not after 10, not after 8. Well, maybe here, but not in KL. Maybe in this part of KL, but not in that part of KL. Or maybe here, but, you know. People differ in their own assessment. And when it comes to wearing hijab, in some countries, will anybody attack me? Will anybody say something bad to me? Will anybody threaten me? For some, they've never been threatened, but they are too scared of it. So they'd rather wear something that doesn't clearly make it hijab-like. And so it's a very good development that in different parts of the world, you find them looking into different fashions of hijab. You know, hijab has gradually evolved, so you've got a Malay style, you've got a Pakistani style, you've got different styles. And they're trying to find ways, just as fashion in the West changes generally for the worst, to try and find fashions that are acceptable. It's like a midway thing. If girls are either going to wear hijab and long flowing gowns, which they don't want to, or they're going to go with pure Western, can we give them anything in between? So as they get older, it's now easier to move here than they went here, and now you want them to cross over to the other side. So even though sometimes we feel we don't like some of these things, don't think about it being made for you. Yeah, if there's supply, there's probably somebody who is demanding that type of thing. Consider that type of person's context. Move to the next. Islam is unjust to women. For example, law of inheritance, witness in court, where 2 men equals one man. We've done that yesterday. We've done the witness in court one, and we did inheritance. Are we okay?
Next question.
Why do Muslims get involved in war and suicide bombing? Those Muslims again. Why do Muslims get involved in war and suicide bombings?
We look at history. You know, which country started suicide bombing? Which country had the most suicide bombing? Iraq, before the United Nations invade Iraq, do they have suicide bombing? So if you look at the history, you will know that it's not.
You know, it's not unique to Muslims. Yeah, people fight wars. I mean, war was not introduced by Islam. World War I, World War II. We never had world wars, and you say Muslim is heading anything there. So, people fight wars for different reasons. For resources, usually. For territory. And just so many political reasons, all sorts of reasons for fighting wars. And when you come to the unethical reasons for fighting wars, Muslims are not immune here. Yeah. Some Muslim leaders have fought wars just because of power, nothing to do with Islam. Yeah. But you will not find a Muslim leader who went to war with the intention of it is just to spread Islam. Yes. In a society where you had some unwritten laws, it's just like in business. In business, if you're growing as a business, unless the government is ready to protect you, but even then, in a free market, it's a survival of the fittest. And if you want to conquer, let me use that vocabulary, another company, if you want to neutralize the threat of another company, you either merge, get a merger, which is like a political alliance, or you buy them off. Conquer them so they are not a threat. And you are now bigger. We discussed this issue of United Nations and tribes during Jahiliyyah, the kind of arrangements. It's not Jahiliyyah, we still do it today. You form alliances between nations, and so you have a United Nations, and if you attack one, all of them will send peacekeeping forces to solve those problems. So, maybe on the topic of...
Two different questions.
Exactly, that's on jihad thing. So, but for this one, why do Muslims get involved in war? For the same reason as everybody else gets in wars. Why do they get involved in suicide bombing? Because many other people also get involved in suicide bombing.
The question is, why do Muslims get involved in war? Is what they are talking about. Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine. This is what they are referring to. The Muslim country involved in war. Our reply to them, probably my suggestion is, reply to them, we ask them who went to fight. For example, like Afghanistan. Did Afghanistan go and fight the Russian, or the Russian people went to Afghanistan? Did Afghanistan people went to America, or America came to Afghanistan? Okay, we talk about the Bosnia and Serbia, as well we talk about there are many other countries. Ask them who fight who went to fight who. The reality, it is the non-Muslim who came to the Muslim country and fight the Muslim, and the Muslim is just defending themselves. I mean, when I if I had the time, I will explain the true picture. When I explain to non-Muslim, alhamdulillah, usually they are very happy. I mean, they are convinced that Islam is the Quran.
You're very right. One of the things the media does, media can show another Muslim bombed, another Muslim did this, without reminding somebody who started the fire. Yeah, because when you know who started the fire, I mean, take Iran, the present Iraq, whatever. What happened there? Every country was telling George Bush, don't go in. United Nations said, don't go. The European Union said, don't go. No, there are weapons of mass destruction there. There were no weapons of mass destruction. You know, no, he's hiding Al-Qaeda. He has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. He's a more secularist. He's a Ba'ath Party member. Now we're going in. And you go in and you killed and you mess up the political situation. Tensions that were there now get to blow up, etc. And you want to stand back and say, look at what these people are doing. You know, like, you remove the cage from the zoo, actually. So, yes, as Lim said, look at who started it. This does not justify the misbehavior of Muslims. Yeah, but Muslims really, I mean, between Shia and Sunni, the killing that's going on, it's crazy. But it just means we've got our own crazy people. Suicide bombing, as Lim said, this was not introduced by Islam, it was introduced by the Tamil Tigers. Now, these are the first people who used suicide bombing as a strategy for warfare. Why is Al-Qaeda formed? I don't know.
Who's from Al-Qaeda?
By the way, who formed? Well, I don't know, unfortunately.
Some people they do the creation of the leader to show, to portray the image of bad image of Islam.
Yes, there is something midnight. On the laptop. There's a documentary actually about how the concept of Al-Qaeda was actually created to justify the so-called war on terrorism. There wasn't enough evidence, but the key thing is there was gas in Afghanistan that was needed and a reason to go in produced. But the idea that Al-Qaeda is this big organized network of cells of whatever was just a hoax. Fear of midnight. If you do a search, there are 3 parts. It's available online. Very beautiful, very interesting, and also disturbing narrative. But again, how confirmed is that, etc.? Is it just guys with the good bills? I think it's a BBC presentation. Anyway, so Al-Qaeda formed, I really don't know. And to rely on just what Western media says has so far been very biased. It was very interesting, the information that was coming from Bahrain. I just visited Bahrain I was there for 2 days before coming here, and what we heard back in Nigeria, and what was on CNN, what was on BBC, even on Al Jazeera, about what was happening, when you go there and you hear people telling you this was a lie, you know, these people, like if you hear what they say actually happening, you start like, so who should we listen to in the media anymore? You know, and there was this lady, she was very active in the area of media, and how the media seemed to have all agreed that they wanted to promote a revolution, they wanted the government to be toppled, and they wanted to hear from the Shia side what was happening in Bahrain, but not from the Sunni side. Because it was just taken that, we're going into nonsense, right? In short, be careful how much you trust. Another go. So So, sorry, I can't answer that question enough.
Brother,
Yeah.
Regarding the September 11th, they claim that Al-Qaeda is planning and doing that. And also documented proof that during the day, September 11th, there is a big company, Morgan and Stanley, inside the building. But Morgan and Stanley is known to be a Jewish company. None of the Jews came during the day. So they, what's this? So this is where the conspiracy comes. And also, after, and then the way the building collapsed, I think some of us know that it is due to explosion. It's a very impossible plane hit and it fall like that.
Yes.
And also they found the passport. If the building burned, how come the passport of the pilot or the so-called terrorist, they can find it? So this is all created by them. And after that, they invade Afghanistan, and there was a contract signed to pump the oil across Afghanistan from the Caspian Sea by the Americans, Monaco. So this is all because of that oil that they want to, and they just create the oil.
Is Osama doing the right thing? Maybe he was, right? Maybe he is.
Now, is he doing the right thing?
Was he doing the right thing?
What? Which thing?
Which thing?
Does he really exist?
I don't know who is Osama.
We usually discuss this.
Okay, next.
Next.
If what Osama is said to do is what Osama did, killing innocent citizens, etc., then that's wrong and unacceptable. But that's on if that is true. Okay. Yeah. Brothers raised the reason some are suspicious about who actually did orchestrate the September 11th bombing. The danger sometimes with answering the question that way is some feel that you just don't want to admit you did something or agree it was bad. Okay? Whereas if you mention that, look, there are reasons some suspect that it wasn't by who they said it was, that there's another hand behind September 11th, number one. However, if Osama bin Laden is the one who did it, actually it doesn't matter who did it. Whoever did it, the act is condemned from the Sharia point of view. And therefore whoever did it is also condemned from the Sharia point of view. You know, you do that in Sharia, you're sentenced to death for hiraba. You know, and hiraba is classified under the same category as assassination, as armed robbery. It's a state offense. Unlike murder. Murder is something where you can negotiate blood money with the family, you can be eventually forgiven, whatever. With hiraba, there's no forgiveness. Yeah. It's death sentence or whatever punishment the... Okay. Why do most conflicts happen in Muslim countries? Also, other problems such as war, poverty, briberies, corruption, etc. So number one, why do most conflicts happen in Muslim countries?
What do you say most?
Yeah, it's useful to ask. Most conflicts? Well, I guess if you live in a conflict area, then you'll say, yes, a lot of conflict is happening there. But let's look at the conflicts. Which ones are we talking about? Because if it is like, because conflict happened in Muslim country, so the location of the battle was a Muslim country, somehow that's the fault of Islam. Or somehow that says something about Muslims. You know? Who attacked the Bosnians? The Bosnians went and attacked people? No. The Serbians wanted ethnic cleansing. Because it happened in Bosnia means Bosnians are wrong? Or Bosnians have a propensity for violence? You know, the question is the equation.
It happened in Muslim countries because Muslim countries are weak.
It happened in Muslim countries because Muslim countries were weak. Probably if Muslim countries were stronger, they would have been able to prevent this type of attack from happening in the first place. Okay? But why were Muslim countries colonized? No, the colonization took place in Muslim countries. You know, you say, well, because they were colonizable. So whose fault? You who was beaten or the guy who beat you? The guy who beat you, you know, like you didn't do anything. Yeah. So you blame the person who came and took slaves. You blame the person who came and exploited your resources. Yeah. So just because it took place in your country doesn't mean there's a propensity for you to become, or there's a tendency that you become violent when somebody came and started the fire. Also other problems such as war, which is the same as number one conflict, poverty and briberies. Poverty and briberies, or corruption. It is true, there's a lot of poverty in Afghanistan, in a lot of Muslim countries.
It's happened in a non-Muslim country everywhere.
You move into Africa and you go to non-Muslim countries. From Namibia to Uganda, from Rwanda to, I mean, just list. Is this an issue of Muslim country, non-Muslim country, or is it an issue of third world? Yeah. You go to South America and you see the level of poverty, you see the kind of oppression, you see the conflicts between various levels of people. Is it a religious issue or this is a political economic issue? Okay. So let's look beyond just, I know it hurts us when a Muslim country is involved, but it's not about getting defensive, it's just, it's true. Muslim countries are wrong for having corruption. Nigeria is a very corrupt country. We usually get into the semi-finals every year. Unfortunately, we compete with Bangladesh and Pakistan. But it doesn't mean countries like America are not triply corrupt. Yeah. It's just done with so much sophistication. The companies that exploit oil in Nigeria, okay, they got British companies, they got French companies, they got American companies. The Niger Delta problem, they messed up the place. But it is because also the Nigerians accepted the bribes. You know, it's just, they say two elephants fight, is the ground that suffers. So where Muslims are doing something wrong, if I look at Nigeria, we're a federal government like here, right? And we've got states. We've got states. And in each state, there are local governments. In each local government, you have wards. When you look at how much money every local government is given from the oil revenue, we should not have any problems. It's enough for them to build a school every month and a new hospital or clinic in a local government every month. That budget can handle that. But the corruption is so bad. Now, I would like to blame it on, you know, the colonial, British, whatever. Colonialization was over since. This problem is that, you know where to point. It's who's heading the local government, who's the governor. That's where the problem is. So, as Muslims, the importance to stand for justice, even if it's against our own selves. If our people do something wrong, it's wrong. Yeah. And while we can point to other people, but this place also does wrong, but this place also does wrong, yes, our own is wrong. Yeah. So just for somebody who wants to know, we are not the only ones with that problem. Do Muslims copy Harimau, Tamil, LM? What's that? Tigers. I think we've answered that question? Yes. It's unfortunate that they went and copied that method. It's also interestingly disturbing that some scholars found a way of justifying it. Though they limited the justification to Palestine, they limited it to military combat, not killing innocents. But that's another question. If Islam is a religion of love, why did jihad occur during the Prophet's time? Anybody? If Islam is a religion of love, why did jihad occur during the Prophet's time? In other words, the fact, what's the equation here? Sorry?
Religion of love or religion of justice?
Yeah. Okay. What other equation can you draw from this? If Islam is a religion of love, so that's an assumption, right? Why did jihad occur during the life of the Prophet? So jihad occurring during the life of the Prophet proves what?
Not love.
Yeah, so it's not a religion of love. So let's ask the question, why did jihad occur during the life of the Prophet?
Yes. You should define what jihad means. Define what jihad means first.
So one is the definition of jihad, which I think we're okay with, right? Broad definition, but I think in the question here, the focus is on warfare. Hardcore.
Spreading of Islam.
Okay. So spreading of Islam at the time of the Prophet was done through jihad.
Defending.
Preventing what? Defending. Yeah. There's no compulsion in religion. When people pose a political threat and they're ready to conquer you, you conquer them. But even after conquering them, you don't force them to accept your religion. So the religion is not spread. You can spread security by fighting. Yeah. Get a more secure environment, form alliances. But even if you form alliances, you don't force a religion. If you defeat an enemy, you don't force a religion. But still, why was that fighting taking place at the time of the Prophet?
If the person who asked the question is Islam, if Islam is religion of love, this particular person surely have the perception that the religion shouldn't have any war.
Good. A religion of love
shouldn't have
would
any
not
violence.
have. Good.
First, we must answer this first. Do you mean that way? That if you mean that way, say tell them in Islam allow violence. They will say no, their religion doesn't allow violence. Then tell them Islam allow violence in two conditions. One, when injustice happened in front of us. Number two, it was a woman she was raped by a number of guys, and we can use violence to stop all these things. So Islam allowed. But the moment you explain this, then they will start to agree with you, and their religion is also allowed. So they will look at the war happen because of what? So people come and fight us, we are trying to defend ourselves.
So if you look at the equation, that a religion, the fact that the Prophet was involved in fighting is looked upon as proof that it's not a religion of love. Okay? So the equation is, a religion of love does not fight. Fighting proves you are not a religion of love. Are we okay? Yes. So we apply it everywhere. So which is the religion of love? Yeah, who didn't fight? Let's not ask why the fighting, if it's just fighting. But then we ask, would a religion of love be allowed to defend itself? Would a loving country, would a country that loves its citizens, loves humanity, be allowed to have an army? Would a country that is loving its citizens be allowed to have police?
Yes.
Why?
Maintain peace.
Sorry? Very good. Maintain peace. Because while you want peace,
In order to maintain peace, you have to use violence at the same time.
yeah, while you want peace, some people don't want peace and they're ready to fight. And you must be ready to fight to defend that peace. And if somebody picks especially on the Prophet's time, okay, picks on the Prophet's time, then it's useful to ask, when you say, why did jihad occur during the Prophet's time, we ask, which jihad in particular are you talking about? Is it Badr? Is it Uhud? Is it, which one? Because then with each one, you are able to explain how this was defensive. Somebody else was the aggressor. Somebody else started the trouble and they had to defend themselves. When you look at the Battle of Badr or you look at the Battle of Uhud, that was between Mecca and Medina. The Meccans and the Medinas. Take Uhud. Where is Uhud now? The city of Medina has now grown big enough that Uhud is in Medina. Now it's 2 kilometers from the mosque. can you explain the Medina, the Muslims fought in Uhud, and somehow you want to blame them for being the aggressor, when they are fighting an army that came about 400 kilometers away? You know, like, how do you, just where did it take place and who is the aggressor? It's pretty clear. You know? Of all the battles between Mecca and Medina, when did the Medinans gather and go to Mecca and Mecca stop them somewhere? You know? So when you look at the battles, you look at who started. And it would be against love, it would be against peace, for you to see people coming and killing your own innocent citizens, and you sit down doing nothing, and you call that peace. When you know they'll just wipe you out, and they're not going to bring a better system in place. Why do Muslims fight with each other?
Chinese also fight each other.
Regarding okay, after the first time, the Muslim army expanded territory. Can we say that Islam, we are, as Muslims, is supposed to convey the message of Islam to other countries? If they allow, then okay, peace. But if they do not allow, then there is a war.
Those were conditions. How did Islam come to this part of the country?
Business.
Yeah, business. Okay. During the time of the Prophet and after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Muslims were surrounded by some superpowers. And these superpowers already had huge chunks of the region under their control. That's why they were superpowers. The Persians and the Romans. And they were always at each other. The Romans would conquer this, doing that, but they kept their borders shifting a little. During the, okay, and these were oppressive governments, you know, like during the battle with the Romans, the Jews and Christians who were not European, who were living in that territory, joined the Muslim army to fight their own governments. Why? Because of the taxation the Romans were putting on these Jews and Christians who were not considered Orthodox. They were not considered mainline Christians. So, for them, you know, it's a little like Libya type of thing. Where a leader is oppressing his people, you don't sit down and you say you're doing nothing. No, you won't tolerate that. And the same things they were doing to the Egyptians, the Romans who were in control of that whole area. And naturally, okay, things got worse during the Ridda Wars. After the time of the Prophet ﷺ, yeah, the Persians and the Romans supported the, you know, there was the breakaways, the civil war during the time of Abu Bakr. Musalman, Kazab, good, Aswad Ansi and these various groups. The Persians and the Romans supported them to fight against the Caliphate. And you fight me or you support the person who fights me, you're all the same. And so when peace was established, it was clear, and the Romans understood, the Persians understood, Muslims are a threat. And so they sent agreement for treaty. But the messenger was killed, the Persian one. Killing a messenger, or in modern terms, killing an ambassador, is a declaration of war. You know? And they fought, and they got defeated. But the moment you defeat the Persians, you've got a big empire now under your control. Yeah. And the moment you defeat the Romans, you've got the whole of North Africa under your control. But it wasn't, you are conquering them just for the sake of spreading your religion. Spreading da'wah was not a military exercise. No. Conquering was for the purpose of securing your state and your borders. Ensuring people don't just come, because when you're big, when you're strong, then people leave you alone. And so, this United Nations on Tribes that we did, the more the number of tribes, the more the number of people with you, the more the size of your army, the less the chance anybody would want to attack you. So conquests were to guarantee political security. Once there's that political security, da'wah can carry on. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, over 60% of the population of the area under Muslim control were non-Muslims. Yeah. Over 60% of the population were non-Muslims. Why? They weren't forced to convert to Islam. Conversions, these things took time. So why do Muslims fight each other? The same reasons everybody fights, whatever. Some for very silly reasons. Yeah. Some because they've got just very greedy leaders. Yeah. It's not something we're proud of. Like Sunni Shia fighting, it's very unfortunate. If you look at what do they disagree with, and then what's there to kill a person for, but some people make a big deal out of a small deal. Does Islam support terrorism? No. Simple answer? No. Terrorism, hiraba, is an offense in Sharia. It's something that's punishable by Sharia. So Islam does not support terrorism. Of course you could play with the word terrorism. You could play with that word and say, well, the thief considers the police as terrorizing them. So the police are terrorizing the thieves, you know. But when we use, but that's using the verb. When you say terrorist, you're talking about people who fight and are ready to kill innocents for political motive. Yeah, that's not acceptable in Islam. As Lim mentioned, there are certain conditions for warfare. And none of them includes you just go and attack innocent people. Suicide bombers are martyrs in Islam. We mentioned the controversy about this. Some scholars say no way, you don't, there's no way from the usul side of justifying suicide bombing. Some say, well, they take the maslaha line and put it that, look, this enemy can afford to throw a bomb and kill me wherever he wants. I don't have that technology. The only way I can do it is if I carry a bomb myself. But if I drop it, he'll catch me. If he catches me, he'll torture me and find out my own people and he'll deal with them. So the only way to clear the evidence is if I die together with my bomb. That's the logic behind it. Now, yeah, sounds like good logic. And I don't want to pull out the topic. The question is that a military strategy that the Prophet used? Is it a strategy that is working? Even if you wanted to say you find a way of justifying, has it been productive or counterproductive? There are other, what's going on in Israel is an apartheid system. People come and take your land and they rule over your land and you're supposed to just live with that. How did South Africa solve its own problem? How could Palestine solve its own problem? There may be other ways. How did India get the British out? With better cooperation, there may be other ways, strategy-wise. But if you talk like that in some audiences, they look at you as being insensitive. You know, you are being insensitive to all the people who have killed, and it's as if you are saying it's a wasted life. No. Actions are judged by their intentions. Those who passed away, we pray if what they did was wrong, may Allah forgive them. Inshallah, they did it with good intention. Hudud.
Brother.
Yeah.
Can we justify that in the Battle of Khandaq, the Prophet Muhammad sent Huzaifa bin Yaman to go to the other sides. I mean, going there is something just like to kill himself. So is justified?
Okay. The point that some of the scholars will bring to say it's not the same is, in that situation, you're dealing with a situation where it's very difficult for a person to come out alive. But it's somebody else that's going to kill him. Somebody else may take him prisoner, but he didn't do what killed himself. Okay. With suicide bombing, there's 100%, you are going to, if that bomb is going to kill anybody, you'll be number one. Okay. In a case where somebody goes and attacks an enemy, you alone, attacking 100 people or so, most likely you will die. Most likely. But they may decide to capture you as prisoner. In other words, you're not killing yourself, you're just putting yourself in a very, very high-risk situation. But it's not you don't call it suicide because it's not you killing yourself. At the end of the day, it's still the enemy that kills you. Yeah. And that is why, from the suicide side of things, suicide by its nature is you are the one, the cause, taking your life. Here you are putting yourself in a situation where it's easy for somebody to take your life. But the choice of taking your life, in this case, it's you choosing. In the other case, the other person chooses whether to take it or not. You can guess what they will probably do, but it's still their choice. Here, it's nobody's choice, it's your choice. And that's why you find some of the scholars not agreeing to use that for qiyas with suicide bombing. Yeah.
Even in the battle of Badr, that some Sahaba covered the body of Prophet Muhammad, even though they know that the arrow is coming just like a rain. So how do you say Uhud in the
Uhud? When somebody protects another person, he is not the cause of killing. Somebody else is the cause. Okay? When I go to defend my family and I'm killed, knowing that these guys have guns, etc., who caused my death? If it was to go to court, okay, if we were to come back to life or I survived it somehow, they killed me. But where I detonate, I don't have anybody to point to. I did it to myself. Yeah. So the issue is who caused it? Who's inflicting the thing that kills? And that is why some scholars are very wary about the use of qiyas. And if there's no clear evidence, there's another incident in a hadith, this was in Handak, the trench, where a particular Sahaba, they were really frustrated with the siege, and one just got up, crossed the trench, went to fire, and they hacked him to death. And some of the Sahaba wanted to criticize and say he killed himself. In reality, no, he didn't kill himself. But he put himself where he was killed. The Prophet ﷺ says he has gotten paradise. He had his intentions. Would they have killed him? Would they have imprisoned him? The key thing for the qiyas thing is who is causing the death? You cause your death, or you put yourself in a place where somebody causes your death. Yeah. So the difference there is why some are very uncomfortable with doing qiyas where the illah is different. For qiyas, the illah, the operative cause for something, must be identical. Then it's a good qiyas. But because some people think that way, they justify it. Others think differently and they don't justify it. But again, where scholars make mistakes, inshallah, they have a reward. May Allah forgive them for their mistakes. Hudud is a cruel law. Stoned to death for adultery. Stoning to death for adultery is cruel. It's too severe. Any comment?
In Malaysia, 15 grams of cocaine.
15 grams of cocaine, you get hanged. Okay? So another death sentence. But why? In Holland, nobody would kill you for 15 grams of cocaine.
It's for
And
prevention.
move around with a 10 actually, you go 10 kilos if you want.
Prevention.
Prevention. Anybody else?
Explain the word hudud.
True. What is hudud? A line, a border, a limit. Yeah, something fixed. Good. Hudud refers to the fixed punishments. Okay? When scholars talk about hudud punishment or singular, had, they mean a punishment that is fixed by Islamic law. It is not left to the discretion of the judge. Okay? Whereas ta'zir, which is the opposite. Ta'zir is where the judge decides what's the most appropriate punishment to do for this. Should he forgive? Should he warn? Should he fine? Should he imprison? Or should he kill? You know, should it be execution? So, ta'zir gives the judge the latitude to do whatever he feels is appropriate for this crime. Whereas had, when somebody does zina, and it's 100 lashes, you can't do 101. If you did 101, at the end this person says, wow, I was 101, yeah. You turn, I give you back one. Yeah, or I want compensation for the extra one. Had is exactly had. You know, you rob a house, they cut your hand. You rob 5 houses, you rob 2 houses, they don't cut 2 hands. It's fixed. Yeah. Ta'zir is where the judge will decide what is most appropriate. So when new crimes come up, new offenses come up, anything that is new, if the government wants to punish riba, for example, if the government wants to punish bribery, or different ways people play with government contracts, kickbacks and all that, or the government wants to punish cybercrime, or any new offense that comes up, you know, you're walking and then you harass a person, you know, there's a lady and you're always following her, you know, just stalking, and she reports it to the police, it's a ta'zir, you know, the judge will decide what's the best thing to do for this offense. At the time of the Prophet, not wearing hijab was never a legal offense. Yeah, it wasn't part of the legal law. No. If you wore it, fine. If you didn't, that was your own business. But then, in some places, they decide they want to make it a law. I'm not suggesting that's even advisable, but the point is, ta'zir is where new offenses come up, or certain things that weren't considered offenses before become offenses, and the judge or judiciary decide. So, for stoning to death is the had for adultery. 100 lashes is the had for yeah. Maybe one should say stoning to death is the had for publicizing adultery. Is it understood? If you do your had in private, if you do your zina, yeah, in private, only one person saw you, what's the punishment in Sharia? Nothing. You're actually very well protected. If 2 people see you,
Nothing.
3 people see you,
Nothing.
yeah, 3, I mean, if I give you 1,000 ringgits, 10,000 ringgits, 3 of you go and look for zina taking place in KL. Will you know where to go?
Yes.
Where you'll see it in the daytime? Or you'll see everything? You know?
If you don't have enough witness, you cannot go on to do. But can you do ta'zir? Only one witness and he is trustworthy?
Because
Mufti or whatever?
no. Simple answer, no. Not for hard cases.
So whatever hard, you cannot do ta'zir. Ta'zir cannot override the hard.
No.
Even though it's truthful, or you have some sort of CCTV or all those things.
Because Allah says in the Quran, if you have anything less than those 4, those people will be given 80 lashes. and their evidence will not be accepted again in court unless the court has any proof that they have reformed.
But they have shown to get single women to got pregnant.
This is an unfortunate mistake in the way judges handle things. Yeah, it's a very, just like in some countries, they consider 4 witnesses required for rape. And if you can't bring 4 witnesses, you can't do anything. It's very, very unfortunate. And some of our scholars prefer to say Allah forgive them, right? Yeah.
So it's wrong we do Azir.
What?
Azir on this occasion only 1 or 2 witnesses is wrong also.
I can't see how it will be justified. I'm sure you will find some who would find a way of justifying it. But if you say, what does the Quran say? 4 witnesses. If you don't have 4 witnesses, it's 80 lashes for each concerned. It becomes another offense, qazaf. And that is why, if you commit the offense in presence of 1 person, he can't go and say, I saw. And so at the time of Sayyidina Umar, these 4 companions went to him and said they saw zina taking place. And the guy who they accused was known to be a very useless guy. So there was little doubt that zina took place. But then Umar asked each one of them, did you see the offense taking place? And when it comes to what did you see, the Prophet ﷺ said, you know the eye coal thing? He said you should see the eye coal thing entering its container. Yeah, that was a euphemism to say you must see actual, you've seen penetration taking place. It's not that they were under the blanket. You didn't see anything. If they're under the blanket, you better shut up. Yeah. It's the publicity of the zina, publicity meaning up to 4 people saw. 4 reliable people. People who are reliable enough that the judge will not believe they collaborated against this guy. Yeah. During the time, so one issue. If you don't bring it to the court, bringing it to the court is bringing it to the public institution. It's considered bringing it public. If you don't bring it to the court and you can't get 4 people as your witnesses, that is not the offense for which hudud has been prescribed. Sorry?
Political issue. His issue is ta'zir. This is about hudud. See, hudud, we can't make any mistake.
Yeah, I understand.
I think
it's a different category.
I don't know what your laws are here, but I can understand if people have witnessed to zina or something and there are less than 4 witnesses, the judge may consider it as not hudud. So not giving hudud, but he may consider it as inappropriate public behavior for which they have witnesses and may decide to prescribe a particular punishment. Okay?
Let's say, like Sayyidina Umar, Rasulullah give only 40 lashes.
Sorry?
40 lashes who are drunk. In Sayyidina Umar time, it did 80 times. Because at the time, maybe there are so many people who are drank so many things. So, back to Rasulullah, we thought that 40 is a hard or hudud already. And then only almost high can do. We consider Sayyidina Umar is almost high. Nowadays, right now, like I try to take not a tazir but 4 witnesses. Now I said only 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses. Is it a mustahid can override or not cannot override or this kind of things?
For a offense to be classified as had cannot be forgiven. It's like stealing. Number 1. Number 2, had has a fixed punishment. You can't alternate had. And that is why, for a number of scholars, drinking alcohol is ta'zir, not had. Why? Because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the punishment for a person who was drunk was not fixed. No? They will throw their shoe on him, embarrass him. That was the punishment. So at the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr wanted to standardize it. Okay? But this is Abu Bakr's choice. Abu Bakr could just carry on doing what the Prophet did, which was not really fully measured type of punishment. So at the time of Abu Bakr asked the guy, you know, how would you, in lashes, how would you quantify the kind of punishment you were given if it was to be converted to lashes? I'll say it's up to 40 lashes. He said, good. So he put 40. Time of Umar, with the advice from Ali, he put it as 80, because it was not solving the problem. That's a ta'zir. Yeah. Had stays had. And because ta'zir punishments are those that the judge can forgive, had cannot be forgiven. Once it's come to the judge can pretend he didn't hear you, but if you insist and he gives you his attention, he has to implement the punishment. That's had. So there was a lady from Gamit who came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, I have committed zina. And the Prophet turned away and just carried on talking to others. And she spoke again. And he just neglected her, hoping that she or somebody would let her know, listen, he's not interested in your case, let's go and seek forgiveness. Why? Because he is the judge. Once it's been brought to a public officer, it's considered as having been brought to him in his public capacity, not as a personal advice, what do you suggest I do? So when it comes in that capacity, the Prophet ﷺ has to attend to her. We look at, and if you want we can, there's of course an interesting question, why didn't the Prophet forgive when it's clear she has repented? Okay? But the problem is the loophole you create in law. When next time if the Prophet said, all right, she's repented, she wants her punishment, which is very clear therefore that she is remorseful, she regrets what she has done, etc. Since punishment is also to reform, there's no need for this punishment. She's already reformed. So you would have said, the simple thing for the Prophet to say is, okay, go. What does that do from a legal point of view? What precedents are you putting down? It means anybody can do an offense, and if they sense there's investigation, they may be caught. They can come and say, I stole this, or I did this, and you have to follow the sunnah and forgive. Yeah. And so, in all the cases, the Prophet tried in different ways to discourage those who had done the wrong to come and bring their wrong to him. You know, it's like, look, go solve it your own way. And so at the time of Umar, a woman was pregnant. She came to Umar. Somebody reported her to Umar. And Umar asked her, how did you get pregnant? And she said, you know, I was out in the desert and I was very thirsty. I wanted water, and one guy said he wouldn't give me water until he slept with me. So because of wanting water, I slept with him. Like, did that sound like a good whatever, or just fudged up whatever? Umar didn't investigate further. He said, okay, end of talk. Another woman, time of Sayyidina Ali. She was pregnant, and her case was brought to Sayyidina Ali. And he said, how did this happen? She said, Wallahi, I was sleeping, and I was so deep in sleep, I didn't know what was happening. And it's when I finally woke up, I saw this guy walking away and he had raped me. Ali said, okay, end of talk. I mean, how can somebody sleep with you and you tell me you're still sleeping? Is that a solid excuse? Ali was not, Sharia is not interested in punishing people. So if there's an excuse they bring, okay, buy the excuse. Another lady brought her case and said, because she didn't say somebody had, like, if you say, the euphemism is somebody slept with me, instead of explaining exactly what happened. So this lady was telling Sayyidina Ali, yeah, it was this person, you know, he came and he sat beside me, and then he climbed, and then Sayyidina Ali said, okay, he touched your lap. No, he tried to go further, and okay, he touched your inner lap. And Ali didn't allow her to talk. He was making suggestions, okay, he touched you here, okay, he touched you there. That's when she realized that he's helping her. Don't admit what you have done. He's Caliph. And then she said, yeah, he only touched me there. He said, that is not zina, you can go. Unfortunately, you know, one among our, we got this problem in Nigeria. Some of these judges is there, somebody comes and accuses somebody of pregnancy, and it's as if you're not married, you're pregnant. Ah, alas, it's a case of zina. Any excuse? She says, I was raped. I was forced to do it by my father, who wanted this person to sleep with me. And the judge is talking as if, I don't care about that one. All I know is you're not married and you're pregnant. That's not how the Sahaba handled it. You know? But then you get half illiterate judges. Maybe I should get emotional on this one.
Next one.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, sorry, but on the question of stoned to death, the offense is for bringing the punishment, bringing the offense public. You know, and one of the things in criminology, it's an interesting principle they have in different types of in different areas in business, etc. It's called the Pareto principle. Some of you have heard of it?
Yeah.
What does it say?
20-80.
Very good. So, effort and result. You have 20% here, you got 80% here. You have 80% here, and this is 20%. What they find is, in organizations, in businesses, take a shop for example, 80% of your profit comes from 20% of the things you are selling. And 80% of your profit comes from 20% of your customers. They're the repeat customers. So actually 80% of the things you are selling only bring you 20% profit. In an organization that's very efficient, they find, if you look at what's the result and what efforts produce those results, you find 20% of effort is actually responsible for 80% of the results. In crime, 80% of crime is committed by 20% of criminals. Okay? Now, what's interesting is, when you see all this crime, 80% of crime is actually just a few bunches of criminals. These are the hardened criminals. You know, they're the ones who go robbing every night. These guys, petty crime today, next 6 months they go and do another petty offense, they pickpockets, they this, that. These are the professional pickpockets. I mean, you shake his hand and you're half naked. You know, he just knows how to take things from you. Because the majority of criminals are only responsible for this, what happens in societies where a severe punishment is put for a crime? The moment you put a severe punishment, what generally happens is this group of people, easily deterred. Yeah, easily. The moment you put a very heavy punishment, these guys disappear. But has crime rates reduced significantly? No, only 20% reduction. So you really don't see any significant difference. Society always has these hardened criminals. But what you have done is, those who are not going to go to hard crime, etc., at least you have saved them from the severe punishment. So when you put a severe punishment, the people you actually finally catch are the hardened criminals who deserve that type of punishment. By the time you put stoning to death for this or chopping the hand of this, and somebody says, we caught somebody doing zina. Where? 4 people? You caught the guy in public? Like, what's your problem? Unless there's a mental problem, you're just trying to do something that you know breaks families, etc. in public, publicizing. We can't allow you to break certain, you don't know those levels of why? Yeah, you can't mess up those lower levels. Yeah. And so for thieves, etc., you end up catching the hardened criminals. But what is interesting is, if you've got an efficient system in place, the moment you reduce this by a small percent, you just reduce this by 25%, that cuts down crime by a bigger deal. In other words, every criminal you catch, now you begin to see the reduction in the crime rates. Hudud, okay. Why can't Muslims convert to other religions? Do they convert to other religions?
No.
Do they? They're doing it. Why can't? Of course they can. They convert every day, whether you like it or you don't like it. But I guess the main question is the next one. A person who leaves Islam will be killed. Why? Okay. In other words, if we look at why can't Muslims convert to other religions, in other words, why does Islam permit